Did you know you can actually create a mastermind group inside of your company? This has an immense amount of value to both you and everybody there. Listen to this interview with Dave Lowshelter to learn more how this can impact you and help you take your business to the next level.
Hey guys, it's Dave Lowshelter here. Hey, listen, I got a special guest here today, Adam Kripke. He is the CEO and owner and extraordinaire of the Alpha Project. And he is an expert at Masterminds. And today we're going to be talking about how to run a mastermind within your organization. So I got him here. Took me a little bit, but finally I got him on the horn here. So we're going to be talking for the next few minutes and really get some good information. So stay tuned and let's start this up. Adam, welcome.
Awesome. Welcome, Dave. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, man.
No problem,
Super excited.
Man. Yeah, it was great. Took me a while, it's like I said, to get you here, but finally we did it.
Thanks, man. I'm looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to this for a while. You know, anytime we get together, it's always a good time. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Let's get into it, man. Because I want to pick your brain about some stuff. I'm really curious about this mastermind and how we could really kind of incorporate this into our business. I know that I've done a little bit of that with my business, and it's really worked really well. And I think kind of sharing some of the ideas, kind of with others is going to be pretty important. So. Tell me, what's a mastermind and what do you do?
So the mastermind was actually developed. There's a book, Think and Grow Rich. It was actually one of the top books of its time. I think it was 1929, or even older than that. Anyhow, the Napoleon Hill was the author, and he studied Andrew Carnegie and Henry Ford. All of the who's who of his time, studied over 500 people and studied all of their habits and figured out what all of these uber successful people did in common. And one of the things that he found was they all had a version of what he called a mastermind. So they all had people around them, at least 50 people that were their close contingent people around them in different industries, different experts that they could go to for financial advice, for manufacturing advice, for anything that they didn't know. They would reach out to these people and get the answers, and it would save them, turn decades into days, so to speak. They would shorten their time frame in accomplishing their goals because they could get these questions answered by experts. And not only that, they could bounce ideas off of people before taking them to market. And, that expertise and that insight and that network of people took all of these uber successful people into the next category because they were able to skip over certain steps that most people had to figure out on their own. Right. So the mastermind in its, the best way to understand it is when you get two people together, there's actually a third invisible mind that's created. So you and me, we're sitting here, we're talking, you have a bunch of insights and experience. I have different experience, but when we join those together, it's kind of like almost like a pot of paint. If you take white paint and black paint and you mix it together, you get a gray. It's a different color altogether. So it's the same idea when you have two people, when you add 3 people, 4 people, and you start to exponentially increase the knowledge and resources that you have. So we try to go after 3 different masterminds. We're going to be talking about the one in your company, but my mentors have talked about having 3. So you want one that's in your vertical market, one that goes horizontally across different markets, and then one inside of your company. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's great. So when you're making these masterminds or creating these masterminds, do you actually start with Is there a certain hierarchy when you're starting these type of scenarios or gathering people around? Is there a way to do that that you know of? Was it done?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has to be structured. There has to be an organizer. There has to be someone moderating. Otherwise, it gets a little too loose and people don't stay on task, and there's really no follow-up afterwards. It's great to get people together and talk about ideas, but the whole concept of a mastermind is having some accountability, and after the fact, actually putting some of these ideas into practice, right? So there needs to be some format around that to make sure that things actually get done.
With the accountability, that's something that I've seen over and over again, where it's like the flavor of the month. You get these people together, they're all fired up, and it's
Right.
like, let's do it, and then it just fizzles out like so quickly, and that's been a problem across the board. I personally have been a part of that. I've talked to many company owners, CEOs, HR reps, and they've all said the same thing. It's like, we get this going, and then we get the reputation that, oh, here comes another flavor of the month, and then nobody's bought into it because it didn't work before. And it's it becomes a real issue in terms of morale and that, the culture change and engagement idea of getting people on board and keeping them committed to that. So I think that's one of the major issues with starting a group. A group activity, it would be more than that, but it would be kind of a group project or a group mission to find a way to kind of, solve problems that are really embedded into the organization.
Sure. Yeah. And if you think about a mastermind, right, and you have some vision coming down the pipe of where the company wants to go, and you have problems to solve, and it's being headed up and organized by someone in the company or in the organization. If you're meeting twice a month or once a month, and you have a common goal, a common vision, and you have the leadership there, which is something that you would help with, right, with the skills there, and making sure that they're influencing people in ethical manner to go in the direction they want the company to go in. But if your feet are being held to the fire, or you're being checked up on twice a month, once a month by this group, your inferiors and superiors, people all up and down the hierarchy of your company that are checking in on you and saying, hey, Dave, how did you do these last 2 weeks on this project or this task that we agreed upon, or this action step, or this insight that we all came up with to fix X, Y, Z. If someone's holding your feet to the fire, you're more likely to actually accomplish that and not be put in that situation, right? So I would assume that a lot of the people that you're dealing with don't have either a coach, or don't have an accountability partner, or don't have some sort of group that's holding them to it, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of on their own out, and other stuff comes up, right? They're going to be dealing with other fires that need to be put out. And then these other tasks that they came up with, they kind of fall to the wayside or become less important over time.
Yeah. And really the whole notion of the leadership and the accountability and kind of the executive buy-in has to be there to be able to take this forward. You can be part of, and I was part of those groups. You're part of these, like, leadership groups or mastermind groups or whatever you want to call them within the organization. But the problem that we ran into was the fact that we were committed, but the executive leadership either didn't understand, wasn't committed, didn't have an idea, all of those things together. And when you want to roll something out, you can't do it because you don't have the
consensus right.
Consensus, right, exactly, to say, hey, look, you guys, that's a good idea. Have you considered this? There's nothing there's no reciprocity there at that point. It becomes a real problem. And so that's what I see with, like, when you're pulling this stuff together, and in my world of, like, culture change and engagement, if you don't have executive buy-in, don't even try it, because it's not worth it. It's not going to work. So I think with the masterminds, I think it's when you're talking about an organization, it's almost the same thing to me, where you got to get the executive buy-in. And then once you get that, have them understand what the goals and objectives are, and then we have them involved. Then you're able to kind of say, okay, now we can move forward with this and meet and talk and go from there. I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference between something that might be important to you and something that might be important to the company.
Right.
You might think it's a priority, but it's really not to the company.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it's critical for companies to have those mission statements and those value statements put out there. So you kind of know what the brand and the feel and the message of the company is, so that you can take that forward. But yeah, that's where all that guidance comes in. But you can also take pieces of your, let's say you're working different departments and you're trying to solve the problem on the floor with either motivation or with manufacturing or something that just keeps coming up and is creating problems and loss of profitability, loss of people, high turnover. Those are great things that are detrimental to any company. And it's how to bring the collective brain power of everyone there and how to solve it, right? And you can get lots of insights from people all up and down the span of the company to help you fix it and create that action plan to engineer that out of the company over time.
Yeah, I think that's true leadership too, because you're really taking the minds, many minds of the company and different perspectives. There's a movie called what's that? I'm blanking on the movie, but it gives different perspectives of the same event that happened. And
right, yeah, and that car movie, Crash.
Not Crash. It's I'm struggling to remember this movie, but anyway, it gives a vantage point. I think it's an older movie, but it's called Vantage Point, and it gives you different. There's one event that happens in the movie. I'm not going to give the movie away, but one event that happens, and then the whole movie plays out in different perspectives, and you would not know it was the same event.
Yeah.
When you got a bunch of different people working in different parts of the company or agency or whoever you're working for, then you really get a different perspective on that. And then you can really tackle a problem pretty easily, or at least more effectively, because you have those different perspectives, because each individual person who's working in a different environment has a different look and a different feel, and getting that feedback is like so important. Then you can strategize.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of the secret to, what I try to bring to Masterminds is extracting even more of that perspective. Mm-hmm. So what a lot of masterminds do, and a lot of, when you put focus groups together and so forth, it's really superficial when you get these people together. You're asking them, okay, we have this issue on the table. How do we solve it? But what you're not realizing is all of the assets and resources that all of the people sitting at that table actually bring. If you were aware of what all of those people had in their arsenal, whether, Joe over here can speak Spanish fluently, that might open up a whole nother opportunity for your company if you knew some of those things. So it's really extracting as many things beforehand from the people that are part of the group to see who they know, what they know, what resources they have, what are they good at, what are they not so good at. And when you start looking at the whole matrix of the people that are part of the group, you can really create some very cool breakthroughs, insights, and open up opportunities to the company and to people that weren't there before.
So you talk about the matrix of people. That is probably the most valuable thing that you can probably pull from that. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think most companies don't have the empathy or appreciation of their employees on what skill sets they have.
Yeah. It's like, they
could say, hey, I'm hiring for.
Yeah, it's like I work with the lady, and everybody called her the best kept secret.
Mm-hmm.
She had more skill and more ideas than anybody, but she was very quiet
Yeah.
and didn't offer it until you asked her. But you had to get her involved, and once you got her involved, it's like these really awesome ideas. And I was like, wait a second, this is a really good idea, and
Right.
they made sense and they worked, and then people played off those ideas, and it became a very powerful, I guess you could say, mastermind or whatever we were calling it back then, and it worked.
That's a perfect example. And think about this, like everybody that has a job today, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, how many jobs did they actually have before that?
Mm-hmm.
Probably several. And they probably did well at those jobs as well. And they might be different, they might be similar. But I guarantee it wasn't the exact same job.
Yeah.
But there were certain things that they did differently. Maybe they did a lot of PowerPoint. Maybe they did a lot of creative stuff. And that's something you could tap into. Most companies don't realize it, that they have all of these resources right at their fingertips. Just by adding one of these mastermind groups into a company, they can tap into speed and information.
Yeah.
And they don't have to go and hire a consultant out of their company, potentially. They might have someone right under their nose that has as much or if not more information than the person they're going to be bringing in or hiring.
Well, I mean, if you're putting, 5 people together, it's going to be much more valuable than consultant. Some, super duper smart person who comes in and says, here's how you should do it. It sounds like when you're the mastermind idea is also, if I'm hearing you right, is to really be able to mine the ideas, the ideologies, the knowledge, the abilities of the people in the group, and then be able to synthesize that together to solve problems and do things like that. And I think that's where the power comes from, and to do it right, and to listen. And you used the word empathy, which I don't think is used enough. I think the notion of listening is not, especially for like managers, because they're so busy, and it's like who has time to listen, right? But if you have a time where you're meeting and you're really kind of putting your ideas together, you do have time to listen and be creative and understand different perspectives and things like that.
Right. Especially honestly, during the hiring process, a lot of this should be done. So a lot of this should be mined out at the beginning, so you're knowing what you're bringing on. And the more diverse person and skill set that you have, as long as they're qualified for the job, the more resources you're tapping into, right? So it's definitely not realized by many companies how many things that they have at their fingertips. And what I've seen from some of the groups that we've done, from websites that people use on a regular basis to systems that people use to generate traffic to, different industry best practices as far as marketing goes, are all brought to the table and shared with everybody in the group. And everyone's take on that is a little different too, on how they can apply it in their own world. And it becomes, I think it's great intellectual fun, having these conversations with people, because you never really know what's going to come out. And it could either be a collective goal as a group aiming to one particular, to fix one particular problem or issue, or everyone in their independent roles trying to solve something themselves, right? Mm-hmm. So it can be structured a couple different ways depending on what you want it to do.
So how if you're working for a large company, how do you pick the people, or do they volunteer, or how do you advertise that? How do you bring that type of group together when you're trying to create that in a company?
What I've seen is it's a different type of mindset. There's some people that really don't enjoy thinking creatively, and they like doing the role, doing their task, and they do it very well. Yeah. But when it comes to coming up with ideas or concepts or helping others, it's very difficult for them. And that's just the way some people are wired. Some other people are either very creative or they have a lot of resources and information that they're willing to share. And we've seen that doing it on almost like a volunteer basis becomes better because people are more willing to raise their hand and be like, hey, I got some great ideas. I'd love to join a group like this. It takes a different personality, a different mindset to really belong to one of those groups, not be scared of speaking up, to kind of voice their opinions, because in most groups, you're going to have people at the executive level all the way down to customer service and below that are dealing with the day-to-day stuff. And many people become intimidated or intimidating if they're top down. So that's one of the challenges as well, is making everyone, equal on the same playing field, and realize that everyone's opinions, everyone's voice is equal.
Yeah, that's the hardest part of that, I think, because when you have, the senior manager, in the room, and then you have the frontline staff, you really have to create an environment where people do feel comfortable sharing, and there's no judgment, and that's really difficult, because it's like we're almost built that way, right? It's like the leader's in the room, then he or she should lead, and then you have to kind of break that pattern to be able to have people be able to share regardless, and not have any fear of, say, oh boy, if I say this, the boss is going to think this type of thing. And I think that's one of the challenges when you're pulling different levels into one group.
Right. And there is a way, there are some ways around that. If you bring or ask people anonymously to actually write in questions or problems that they're dealing with to the group, and then the group helps solve those issues. For the people that don't enjoy speaking in front of a group, or for the people that really, this isn't their ball of wax, they write in certain problems or things that they're facing in their job, and the group can address it, right?
They write in how much they hate their senior manager.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Like, whoops.
Could become or it's like, oh, I know that's Sally.
They named them.
Right.
It's like, well, we'll skip this one. We'll skip this question.
Yeah, you got to, in these groups, you got to check your ego at the door, right? And part of the way that we get around it is by encouraging everybody to ask questions instead of being
like pontificating,
or telling people what exactly they need to be doing, and questioning may be something that comes up. Is that would this potentially be an issue when solving or when coming up against this barrier, or whatever it might be, right? But by asking questions, you're leaving it open-ended and allowing people to do their own thinking, and it's no longer like coming from you on what they should do, and like the leading piece, like you were saying, the natural habit of these people was to say, you need to go do this, this, and this. These are the right steps. But if they said,
especially when people are task oriented, and they maybe have jobs like that where it's like it's ABC all day long, and that's part of their job. They're not quote unquote paid to be creative. Let's say their job is more, it's more production. But I also found that those are the same people that, when given a chance, they really flourish in that environment, because they want to be creative. They want to share ideas. Just because they have a job that doesn't tackle their creative side doesn't mean they're not creative.
Right.
They might be good at the job, but they also yearn for maybe giving a little more of their job. They want to use that part of the side of their personality to be able to kind of contribute that.
Right. And actually, so to that example, right? So that person, that's a very task-oriented person. So masterminds don't necessarily have the same structure every time. There's lots of different structures that you can implement. For example, you could take that task-oriented person and bring them to present to the group. And they could educate the group on the tasks that they go through on a daily basis.
Oh, wow.
And then they might say, here's the problems that I'm facing with my tasks. Present it to the group. They start asking questions, coming up with different perspectives. That most of the time, problems are solved by the end of the session.
Yeah.
It's just taking the actions to get them done. So you could have presenters come in and present to the group, maybe in a different part of the company that people don't understand what the day-to-day is. And it might open the eyes of a lot of people like, oh, that's why they're not turning in the reports on time.
Right.
And because they're dealing with this, and this. Or you can put people in the hot seat. So maybe there's someone that's supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z from the group. You put them in the hot seat and say, okay, show us what you did with the first task. Show us what you did with the second task. And that person sits on the hot seat and you're grilling them with questions, making sure that they're getting what they had to do done. And there's a couple other structures that you can do to make it super effective, really pinpoint it into certain parts of the company. So you're extracting as much value as possible.
Trying to look at that from like a grassroots perspective is also another way. Because what I heard you say was, let's find out what we don't know. And because there's so many details. Like there's the communication between the breakdown of communication between frontline workers to middle managers and senior leaders is an incredible breakdown, and it happens all across in every organization. And to have management know the nooks and crannies of what's really happening and the real problems, not like, well, we think this is the problem. It's like, what the problem is once that person says something like, oh, okay, we didn't know that, Then once you know the real problem, then you can have a real fix. And right. I think with that example, it really brings power and an effectiveness to any teams, units, organizations, and it really you can really move forward a lot faster if you can develop a structure like that, a consistent structure like we're talking about, and be able to kind of methodically always find that problem that's there that we need to fix that we don't know that's there. It's like it's the known unknown, right? The unknown unknown. Who was the guy that was he was a politician. He was in the I can't think of his name, but he would call the known the unknown unknown. And so there's things in your organization where there's known knowns, there's known unknowns. It's like that idea where you think you know it, but you really don't. And I think it's really something that you can really tap into.
Right. Yes. I heard actually an interesting quote. It was yesterday. Someone said, typically what you find is people that know everything don't even know all the questions. Meaning people that think they know everything, they don't even know what questions they're not asking themselves to make it better, become more, grow the company. They're just studying, going in one heading in one direction, thinking that everything's hunky-dory and everything's fine, and they're doing what they know. But there's lots of things they don't know. Yeah, they're definitely not maximizing their workforce most of the time, and definitely not maximizing all the resources that they have at their fingertips. Because what you'll find is when you get into the mastermind and you start poking in dark corners that you aren't really sure what's happening, and you start extracting all of these ghosts, like, oh man, that's not pretty. We need to fix that. But what tends to happen is you fix more than one problem at a time, and you start engineering out efficiencies that, again, take the trajectory of your company, not only like the profits, but the enjoyment and job satisfaction goes through the roof. Yeah. Because there's research out there that shows when people are appreciated and actually feel like they're, respected, and that their opinion is actually listened to, that's more important than how much you pay them. Like someone that feels appreciated is willing to get paid less than someone that's not appreciated and they get paid more. And by doing the mastermind group and you're really genuinely listening and trying to solve their problems, make their life easier, better, faster, more profitable, putting food on the table at home makes all the difference in the world.
It's funny as we talk about this, because when I thought about masterminds, I thought of it just like a unit of people, sharing ideas. And it sounds like you really, the mastermind is just the beginning, and it really can expand out to, and if you do it right, it expands out to really affect the needs of the many outweighs the needs of the few. As Dr. Spock would say, right? It's that whole notion of, we can work as a small unit, but then, and save a lot of people in a sense. Like you're like the A team of a special forces unit that's saving, hundreds of people by being so specialized and being able to have those skills. So it's really kind of I would know. I mean, if I spoke to like more CEOs, I think the thing I would say now is, the question I would ask is, do you have masterminds here? Because if they don't, then they need something, right? Because they need something like this to really kind of make a difference. Because it sounds like this is a pretty convincing argument to say, okay, what do you have this in place? Because if you don't, then you got problems you don't know about. If you do, at least you have a mechanism to uncover them
And fix them.
Yeah, and fix them, right?
Yeah. So, most companies have upstream communication, like they might have secret shoppers or something like that is bringing information from the consumer, their client, their customer upstream to the executive team. Executive team is making changes, sending it downstream through marketing, all the way back out to the customer service team or sales team or marketing team, and going back out to the consumer and the client.
Right.
But inside of that feedback loop, there's really so many gaps in the chain as far as communication, as far as what else can be done that can add more value to your end user, right? Which is the ultimate goal. It's the value of your company is how much value you really provide to your end client, right?
Right.
So what we found is masterminds can help bridge that gap and bring more information to the table, more solutions to the table, more profit to the table, more job satisfaction at the table. It's really fun, and it's a fun group. You can do it at a bar. You don't have to do it on online. You could do it on an island. You could take people to Hawaii and go do it. So it's like, you could make a really cool group out of this. It could be something that people look forward to, could be written off, the company as an expense. So it's fun. I love it. I think they're great.
Hey man, if you ever do like a Hawaii mastermind, you better call me, because I want to be part of that one. that'd be a pretty. I mean, how many weeks? No problem. I'll be there. So.
Right.
Hey Adam, thanks. I really appreciate you coming on and kind of talking about this. I think that the ideas and the notions and everything that we you talked about is really invaluable to a company. And if they're able to, implement this or figure this out, this is something that could really make a quantum leap with this, certain goals that companies have. If anybody needs to reach you for any type of consultation or just any questions, where could they find you?
And can they just call you?
Yeah, they could call me.
They just call Dave.
Hey, just call me. I'll tell no problem. Yeah.
No, you can go to alphaproject.us. That's my website, or info@alphaproject.us, and that email goes to my team as well. But Dave, I appreciate it, man. This is awesome, and I want to pick your brain some more on leadership training and management, because it's all integrated. All of that is just, like you said, it comes top down, really. So there needs to be leadership at the top that's able to pull this off, or else it's incohesive and it just falls apart.
All right, man. We'll do this again, and we'll talk it through once more. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll talk soon. If you, like I said, need to contact Adam, shoot him an email, ask him a couple questions. He's always available.
Cool. Love it.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you.
Take care.
What's up, guys? I hope this episode gave you some fresh new insights and thinking strategies that you can use to help grow your business. If you can't wait until the next episode, please check out my website at alphaproject.us for a ton of free articles and information, completely gratis with no email opt-in required. If you're looking for even more value, I strongly encourage you to sign up for my newsletter. My team and I are constantly looking for new ways to provide you with some killer content, including interviews we might do, stimulating articles, and new business strategies that we may come across along the way. Feel free to share this with any like-minded professionals you may know and that may benefit from some of these strategies shared here. And if you enjoyed this, please leave a comment or a rating as well. We appreciate that. Lastly, if you or anyone you know would like to add a powerful new revenue stream by offering a custom designed Mastermind Group experience to your current audience, please contact me. That's what I do. I look forward to hearing your stories from implementing any of the creative thinking methods I shared here. Best of luck to you on your journey, and thank you.